So yesterday we talked about how to find a square root. Now I'm going to show you what happens when you're trying to find the square root of a number that's not a perfect square. What if we have to find the square root of a number like 40, for example, and nothing times itself gives us 40. 40 is not a perfect square. Well, so there's two options. One is we can estimate the square root, and two is we can find it with a calculator. I'm going to show you how to use a calculator to find square roots, because in real life, when we're finding a square root of a number like 40, it's going to give us a decimal. There is no whole number, so we would use a calculator. However, if we need a quick and easy answer, we're going to look at a real-life example, then we can estimate the square root. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to make a list in your notes of all of the perfect squares in our basic fact memory bank here. So if you think of, for example, 1 times 1 is 1, so 1 is a perfect square. 2 times 2 is 4, so 4 is a perfect square. 3 times 3 is 9. I'm making a list of all the perfect squares in our, in our memory bank, so we're going to go up to 12. You can work faster than me probably at this point. See if you can figure out the rest of the perfect squares. If you want to go slowly and do them with me, make sure you're writing all these down now. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81. 10 times 10 is 100. 11 times 11 is 121. And 12 times 12 is 144. Now these are what I call the basic facts of perfect squares. You probably will learn some more. If you want to write down some more, you might know that 13 times 13 is 169. 14 times 14 is 196. And you might start to memorize some more. You might memorize 20 times 20 is 400. There are some others that are pretty easy to memorize. But let's start with these. And these are going to help us to estimate a square root. Now take a look at this example. If I want to find the square root of 40, first thing I'm going to think of is that a perfect square? And when I think of all my basic perfect squares, no, it's not. Nothing times nothing will give me 40. So that means I've either got to get a calculator and figure out the exact square root, or I can estimate. And I'm going to show you how to estimate. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to find the closest perfect squares to 40. So I'm going to look through my list here, and I can see that 40 falls in between the perfect square of 36 and 49. I just want to show you that. So the square root of 40 falls in between the square root of 36 and the square root of 49. Just want you to see that I'm using these symbols to show that the square root of 40 is in between the square root of 36 and the square root of 49. And so I can see that 40 is only 4 away from 36, and it's 9 away from 49. Do you see that? This is 9 away, and this is only 4 spots away. So the square root of 40 is really close. I'm going to use this little squiggle here. That means approximately equal to the square root of 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. So the square root of 40 is about, or approximately, 6. So what did I do there? While you're copying this, make sure you understand what I did. I found, because I couldn't find this perfect square root of 40, I could do that with a calculator, but I don't know what it is without a calculator, so I looked for the closest perfect squares to 40. And when I looked through my list, 40 fell in between 36 and 49. It was closer to 36 than 49, so I found the square root of 36. So that means the square root of 40 is about 6. It's going to be 6 point something. I'm going to show you really quick to check your work with a calculator here. If I want to find the square root of 40, all calculators are slightly different. That's why I want to show you in class tomorrow. But look at what the actual square root is. It's 6.3245, and looks like 5 repeats. There's it would take us a very, 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 very long time to figure out that exact square root. And we probably have to use trial and error to figure out that 6.3245 times 6.3245 would give us something close to 40. So we really have two choices when we don't have a perfect square. We can estimate or we can use a calculator. You do need to know how to estimate. Make sure you have these perfect squares in your notes and this example. I'm going to give you one more example, and I'm going to give you a word problem example because this could happen in real life, and then you're going to practice some. Take a look at this. A Coast Guard boat is searching for a lost sailboat. It covers a square area of 125 square miles. That means, you know, the boat's going to go up and across and down, and it's covering about a square area of ocean. Obviously, it can't just roam all over the ocean. It's got to use some methodical way to try to find that lost sailboat. Maybe there's more than one Coast Guard boat, and each boat is being assigned a square area of about 125 square miles. What is the approximate length of each side of the square area? Okay, imagine you're Coast Guard, and your chief, your boss tells you, go search 125 square miles in this particular part of the ocean. So you have to figure out, as the captain of your boat, well, how far north do I go? How far west? How far east do I need to go? You're going to have to try to find the square root of 125. You're going to have to try to find, okay, what times what would give me about 125? So this is an example where you could estimate a square root in real life. So we need to find what times what will give us 125. How far do I need to, as a captain of that boat, do I need to travel in one direction? And then in the other direction to make sure I'm covering that 125 square miles. So I'm going to have to try to find the square root of 125. Now, if you think of your perfect squares, you look at your list, think of your times tables, there is no number that you multiply by itself to get 125. However, there's one really close, 121. 125 is really close to the perfect square of 121. I should have made that an approximate sign. It's really close to the square root of 121. And 121 is our perfect square. And the square root of 125 is approximately the square root of 121, which is 11. 11 times 11 is 121. That tells me that as the navigator, as the captain of this Coast Guard boat, that I'm going to have to approximately travel 11 miles in one direction, then 11 miles in another direction, and keep on continuing. And that way I would cover about 125 square miles. So the answer to this is about 11 miles. You could use a calculator and you will find out it's about 11 point something miles. Okay, I'd like you to try these 4 problems. See if you can estimate the square roots of the following numbers, and we'll pause the video. Unpause it when you're finished and we'll go over these. Okay, I hope you had your perfect square list handy. It's definitely going to help you to estimate these square roots. Okay, so the square root of 66 is approximately, it's closest to the square root of 64, and the square root of 64 is 8. So the square root of 66 is approximately 8. Did you get that? All right, let's take a look at this one. The square root of 80 is very close to the square root of the perfect square, 81, and the square root of 81 is 9. So the approximate square root of 80 is 9. All right, square root of 5 is also approximately the square root of 4. 4 is a perfect square, and the square root of 4 is 2. So the approximate square root of 5 is 2. Okay, one more. The square root of 50 is also really close to the square root of the perfect square, 49. and the square root of 49 is 7. Okay, so the approximate square root of 50 is 7. Now all of these were really, really close to perfect squares. Look, this was only 1 away. This is only 1 away. This is only 1 away. This one was 2 away. Okay, they're not always going to be that close. Sometimes you'll find it smack dab in the middle of 2 perfect squares. But just look for the one it's closest to and find the square root of that. Okay, this is a little complicated, so go ahead and rewind the video, watch certain parts. You can look back over those examples. And tomorrow I will show you how to use a calculator and all the different calculators, functions, and ways you can find square roots. And we'll also look at some real life examples of when you need to find the square root of a number and when you would need to find an estimate. See you then.